Hello viewers, I've driven many karts in my time, but this is easily going to be the fastest. A 120 mile an hour 6-speed shifter, and the good guys over at Racing Prodigy have flown me out to the United States to give it a go. We are at Atlanta Motorsport Park. It's a track that lots of people told me to come to, and it's a track that I'd really wanted to come to after watching it on YouTube myself. After going on a track walk with Kevin, the Birrell driver here, we worked out the best lines around the course and changed the track limits in my favour somewhat, before we then hypothesised about how long my neck would last, given that it's been quite a while since I last raced.
How long are you giving his neck, do you think?
I think after 20 laps,
Yeah,
it's going to be done.
we'll do 4 5-lap sessions then, just so I can really eke out the day.
That's pretty steep.
That is so steep. There's a lot to learn. Never driven a shifter. I mean, I know what to do, but I'm gonna have to drive one-handed quite a lot. It's physical enough as it is, driving a kart without gears. Having to drive like this, shifting whilst braking, with front disc brakes as well. Very powerful brakes. This is gonna be hard. And here we go then, my first ever laps in a shifter kart. I've done karting for over 20 years and I've driven many different types of kart, but I'd never had the privilege of driving a kart as fast as this. Not only that, around such a great track as Atlanta Motorsport Park. So many thanks to all of you that suggested I come to this track, because as I was finding out here on my first lap, it was such an amazing circuit. I did a bit of research on YouTube, watching a video by Martin Kramers, a Birrell factory driver as far as I am aware, a very talented driver, driving a shifter car around this track, and that viewing experience is being translated here into reality, albeit slightly slower than what he drove on that day. Now here you've got this massive crest. As you go over it, you really do feel the forces acting upon you. Let me tell you that when you're travelling this fast, this kart is so fast, and I'm not sure the video does it as much justice as it really felt, but I've never felt this much force acting upon me in a kart ever. Even in car racing, I would say that this is much more ferocious and intense than any car I've driven on a racetrack, and certainly much more rigorous and intense than any kart I've driven. The speed you're reaching here, the G-forces, are much higher. So this was going to be an incredibly physical experience, there was no question about that. It had been at least 7 or 8 months since my last time out in a race kart, and therefore my fitness was somewhat debatable at this point, as karting fitness is something you kind of have to really keep on top of. And so I was really doing my best to hold on. You can see there was a lot of movement on the wheel, and the smoothness wasn't quite there. The refinement of the technique coming down through this compression here was something else. I've never really felt forces like that acting upon my body. It really felt very peculiar as you drop down there, shifting a couple of gears. The acceleration was like nothing I've ever felt before. Absolutely unbelievable speed, and I wasn't even driving it as quick as it could go. A little bit wide through there, trying to find the limits, trying to adjust to the circuit and just incrementally increase our pace. As you can probably tell, this was a mixed open session. You can see the speed difference here between this and other regular karts. I know these karts aren't fully pushing, but you can still probably get a gist of the difference. And those karts were still pretty quick karts. We do find ourselves up behind another shifter here, so there was at least some barometer of what a shifter can do around here. And it's always good to get out on the track with someone else in the same machinery. And so I was just trying to keep up with this guy in front. I must say that even after just 4 or 5 laps in this thing, especially given that my fitness was not quite there, This thing was ridiculously physical, and I had to come in to give my neck a rest. Woo. It's so weird going through that compression after the chicane. Kills your neck. The speed boost is unbelievable. These front brakes are savage. You're going down the far end of the track. Big brake from, I don't know, 90 mile an hour down to like 30. I've never felt stopping power like that before, ever. You know what the most demanding part of the track is? Down through the chicane, you get so much compression, like you get pushed down and you accelerate so quick, and you're changing gear at that point. Like, I've never felt anything like that in a kart before, ever. I got a 52 second last time. Let's try and get a 51. So it's time for my second session, and we're just trying to build upon the things I worked out in the first one, trying to chip away a bit more time. And the main thing I was noticing really is two things: the brakes, how powerful they are. You can see the front disc brakes there, and this is again something I've not really ever driven before, front disc brakes. The capability of these brakes is just absolutely unbelievable, and I definitely wasn't maximising the power of them. How late you can brake, especially with the engine braking, with the downshifting. And so that was one element I needed to improve. Braking later, relying more or trusting more in the brakes. And then the second thing, as I try and make it past this traffic, as not quite making it there. The other thing was being in the correct gear at the right time. You see there, I bogged down, not being in the correct gear at the right moment. Eventually, once you're on the straight, it's quite easy, but being in the right gear at the right time through the corners, especially if you don't get the corner quite right, you really do bog down quite a lot. The power band is quite narrow in this type of kart, and therefore you have to be really smooth and metronomical with your driving. And this was something that was really quite difficult to do, and I must say, every respect to the fast shifter drivers out there who, obviously with much refinement, have perfected this technique and this way of driving. This was something I still had to learn, but I think I was doing okay for my first ever time. There was a lot to take in, and as I say, my fitness wasn't quite there. But my lines were just getting a bit better. I was carrying a bit more speed through the corners. Still, the steering not quite as smooth as I could be. Even on the straight there, the car wanting to react. On the brakes hard into here, and I wouldn't say I was really capitalising exactly, or as much as I could do through that corner. But let me leave you the rest of this stint as we try to improve our lap time. After that session, it was time for lunch, where I stole the entire supply of cookies at the circuit. We encourage speeding on the track. And in order to improve my speed on the circuit, I did a data and video review session with Kevin, just to really flesh out and work out where I was going wrong, and to hear it from a professional. Like, looking at the footage makes you realise you've got to be so smooth, because the gearing is so important. There's the rev range is so narrow, so if you make a mistake, the kart slides and you're no longer in the power band, so the kart just dies. So there's a lot to think about. You need to be a bit smoother. I then had a quick go on street kart and managed to recreate my crash at Wilton Mill.
Okay, we've crashed.
So street kart is one of the ways you can qualify for Racing Prodigy. There's a link down below, go and take a look. I'm actually in the game, so that's pretty cool. After lunch, you could see that the conditions had dramatically changed. By now, it was raining, the corporate karts were getting stuck in the mud, and hopefully this would not be my fate just moments later when I would be going out on the circuit myself in the shifter. So this was about to be quite a scary and ropey experience, driving a shifter in the rain around an unfamiliar circuit. But without thinking about it too much, we jump out onto the track for one last time. And hopefully this time we can have a bit of fun, as well all of the data and video review was kind of going to go out of the window here because the conditions were so different and very much more aquatic on this occasion. So let's give it a go then, as maybe this could make things a bit easier. Of course, in the rain you're going to drive a bit slower than before in the dry, and often, you know, sometimes I actually prefer wet conditions, so this could actually work in my favour. But what I did enjoy particularly about this was that I could experience this kart in the dry and in the wet, which I think was a good mix. As we head into this final corner here, I'm going to try and take some different lines, going a bit deeper into the corner before coming back and rotating. The same principles do apply of being in the right gear at the right time, as if anything it's more crucial in the rain, as you really do need to get the drive off of the corners. And of course we have to be careful of the curbs and the white lines, as we all know they can be very slippery. As we head down the hill, I must say it was quite scary, the amount of grip this thing produced. I know it's fully wet here, but with the wet tyres you can still go extremely fast. A massive snap on the steering there as we hit the anchors into this corner, and it kind of gives you a quick reminder there of just how sensitive this kind of kart is. You really do have to be in control of it. I know that sounds obvious, but with a machine of such power and grip, you really do have to have strength to hold on to it and be in control of the machine, as it can just snap away from you at any moment if you're not going to be willing to properly hold on and take command of the kart. Now coming through here, trying to just push our line and our speed, sliding through this corner quite nicely, and you know what, I actually felt pretty comfortable, despite being soaked. Not that sense of comfortable, but really just in terms of how you drive the kart, I'm not sure how my pace was compared to, let's say, the likes of Martin Kramer's, that video I watched before I came here. I'm sure he'd be going around here quite a lot quicker than I would be, but I was just building up at my own pace and try to do things to my own understanding. After a few laps with no incidents, I then made this mistake. And after embarrassingly pulling the kart out of the mud, I was able to keep going and tried to make the most of my last few laps. By this point, as you can probably tell, I was absolutely filthy, soaked, mud, and despite that, I was having a lot of fun. This was, as I say, one of the best experiences I've had in a kart, and Atlanta Motorsport Park is right up there. It might be my new favourite track. I would love to race here, as I'm sure that would be another level. We're only driving around here in a practice session, which isn't the same, and I'm sure racing this track would be absolutely incredible. So perhaps one day we'll come back and give it another go. But there's the checkered flag. That was the end of my time in the shifter kart. So we just slowly roll around, bring the kart back home, ideally without sliding off into the wall. And we can just enjoy this last half of a lap before I come back into the pit lane. Kevin then gave the kart a quick rinse down before he himself would head out onto the track and give it a go. was very good to watch an experienced shifter driver tackle this circuit as our day came to an end. I've got to say a massive thank you to the guys at Racing Prodigy and Street Kart for flying me out here to give me this opportunity. It was very, very worthwhile. Now their tournament is live, you can give it a go and you could qualify to be racing a Radical SR1 here at Atlanta. Thank you so much for watching everyone, I'll catch you next time.